Welcome back to Driveway Garage. Today I'm going to drain and then refill the transmission fluid on my 2013 Subaru Outback. I was going to flush it, but I got a filter from O'Reilly's and it doesn't have the gasket. I think somebody probably stole it. It's supposed to be a kit, and I get it home, and so I decided I'm not going to mess with that right now. I've been having an issue of going down the interstate pulling my trailer about 75 miles an hour. It gets warm. The light comes on the dash. And then if I pull a heavy load and I'm going up a long mountain grade, it'll come on, say it's hot. Well, I don't want to ruin the transmission, of course, so I'm going to start off with draining it and then refilling it to the proper level. I have no idea if it's right or wrong right now. So let me flip this camera around. This is my Outback. Now, some people think this is a great idea and some people think it's stupid. But I've got it driven, I drove it up on 4 of these ramps. And I have the emergency brake on. And my driveway is fairly level. It slopes a little bit toward the street, so that would be left or right, but not much. Now, the procedure is you make sure you can loosen the fill plug. It's on the driver's side of the transmission. And once you make sure that will come loose, then you pull the drain plug, drain out the fluid, which should be approximately 5.5 quarts, depending on when it was done, if it was done right. When you refill it, put in about 5 quarts, and then you start it. You let it warm up, and you want the transmission fluid to be about 100 degrees. I think the range is 95 to 113, something like that. You have 10 degrees there to work with. You don't want it too hot, because then when it cools off, it'll be a little bit low. You don't want too little, or when it warms up, it won't be really enough to do the job. So I'm going to crawl underneath there. I should have, maybe I'll do that real quick. There's some granules underneath there, you'll see. And that's from the last oil change I did. Actually, it was this vehicle. And I managed to spill a little bit of oil. So I threw some absorbent down there. I'm going to take my blower, blow that out of there. And then I don't have to roll around on top of it because it makes it harder to roll in and out. And then I'll show you exactly where the fill plug is, where the drain plug is. And we'll see if we can get this done in a little bit. That's a little bit better. I don't know if you guys can see it or not. There's the tracks where I was rolling around in it, but at least I can roll in and out of there a little easier. So what a lot of guys do, they just jack the vehicle up and put it on jack stands right behind the front tires and in front of the back tires. You'll see those little notches. That's where you're supposed to put the jack and the jack stand, but you can jack it up from up front. Anyway, I find this the most secure. I've got, these things hold a lot of weight and it's pretty level. So let's get under here. Hopefully you guys can see. Okay. So I already tried it out. Now, that's the drain plug. I mean the fill plug, sorry. It's on the driver's side, toward the back of the transmission, in front of these 2 connectors here. And there's a lot of these little things around, so don't get them confused. Like, there's one there, and I guess there's some on the other side. Anyway, you see those 2 connectors? It's right in front of it. Make sure you can get that baby loose, and I did. And actually it's starting to ooze out of there, so that might mean it's too full. But then on the bottom of the pan on the other side is the drain plug, and I tried it. That's 14 millimeter. So when you're sure that the fill plug will loosen, go ahead and take your drain plug out. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the fill plug out. I wanted to see if there's excess oil in there or if it's just about right. Once I take that out and see if it drips a bunch of oil, then I'll take the drain plug out and let it drain. Okay, so I started taking this drain plug out and there's a lot of oil coming out. I decided to wait and let you guys watch it, but come on, plug. You can see all the oil coming out of there. It's supposed to just barely, holy moly. That's not supposed to have that much oil in there. Somebody didn't know what they were doing. That's probably why it's overheating, is because there's way too much oil in it. Well, when that finishes draining, I'm going to go ahead and fill the drain plug. Jeepers creepers. Now I know why it was overheating. It probably couldn't breathe. I tell you, I don't know who this guy's mechanic was, but he wasn't very good. I don't even know how he got that much oil in there, to tell you the truth. You're supposed to just fill it till it comes out the drain plug. And I've already got at least 1 or 2 quarts out of there now. Alright, well, I'll get the drain plug out, and then we'll let it finish draining. See how much we can put back in. I'll try to measure this, see how much they had in there. It's supposed to be 5.5 quarts. 12 quarts in the whole system, but I'm not going to flush it. I'm still having a hard time believing that I got that much oil out of... Now that's got to be at least 3 quarts. How did they overfill the transmission by 3 quarts? I mean, you have to put the oil in the fill plug. They must have just blasted that baby and then threw the cap on it really fast. That's the only thing I can imagine. Unless, I heard if you, if you fill the wrong hole in the differential, it'll go into the transmission. Maybe they overfilled the differential by a long shot in the wrong hole or something. I don't know, but that's just crazy. I'm going to dump that into an oil container and I'm going to see how much it is exactly. So I found a used oil container, and right now that has 1 quart of oil in it. So I'm going to dump the oil that came out of the overflow tube. I probably better set the phone down to do this, because I don't think I can film it and do it with one hand. I'll go ahead and dump it in there, and then I'll show you guys how much oil there is. Okay, I got the container emptied. Now this had a 1 quart in it. It's now up to here with fluid, which is 3.5 quarts. There's the 3 quart line, there's the 4 quart line, so a little less than 4 liters. 3.5 quarts, so that means this thing was 2.5 quarts over full on the transmission. I'm just not even quite sure how they did that. I did watch videos, and there's a plug. If you take it out thinking that you're doing the differential, you're actually dumping oil into the transmission. So it goes from wherever in the differential right into the transmission. So maybe they just they used the wrong fill hole, one they weren't supposed to use, and that's how they got almost 3 quarts extra. That is just crazy. Now I've got to take the oil in my pan there after I put the drain plug back in and see how much oil I actually took out of the transmission pan. Well, there it is, guys. That's as much oil as I usually get out of an oil change, and it should be about 5.5 quarts. But add to that the other 2.5 quarts. This thing was way overfull. Oh, I'm going to dump that into some containers and get ready to start filling up the transmission. I have 6 quarts. I'm hoping it takes 5 or 5.5. That's what they said. So let's find out. So I was thinking there should be a crush washer on the drain plug, and there it is. I cleaned it up, sprayed it off with some brake cleaner. But when I dumped the oil into this bucket, it was laying in the bottom of the pan, so it fell off at the plug. So something to keep in mind, make sure you put your crush plug back on. I mean crush washer, not crush plug. Now this is what I'm going to use to fill up the transmission. I've got a little electric pump I bought because I've done several transmissions, and I hate, and rear ends and stuff, and I hate pumping the oil in and out by hand. So the problem with it is it's got a pretty small cable on it. I've done this before. I'll hook jumper cables up to the battery and then lay those underneath, and then I can have the pump down by me. And I just turned it on for a second, as you can see here. So it's sucking oil through this line. So what I'm going to do is put that end into some clean oil, and pump it till it goes all the way through. I might even just use some regular oil, something that I can kind of flush it out a little bit, because I've used it for dirty oil and things like that, and I don't want contaminants in it. I'm trying to figure out the best way to clean it out, but I'll figure out something. I'll get it cleaned out, then I'll get a jumper cable, put it down there, and then I can just pump in the oil 1 quart at a time. I'm thinking that's the best way for me to do this. Okay, so I found some just regular transmission fluid, and I pumped that through here. I got the lines pretty clean. This one is kind of brownish. This one's pretty clear, so I'm just letting it sit there, let gravity do its thing. I'll get out my jumper cables, I'll get underneath there. Probably not going to be able to film this, but you saw the fill plug earlier. I'm just going to pump in 1 quart at a time, and when I hit 5 quarts, I'm going to check the transmission temperature, the oil temperature, because like I said before, you're supposed to be around 100. I think it's 95 to 113, so if I hit around 100, and this has been sitting quite a while, but it's almost 100 degrees outside, so it's not going to take much, I wouldn't think, to warm it up. So let me get 5 quarts pumped in there. I wish I had a better way to set it up so you could watch, but I don't. So I guess you'll just have to figure out whether you're going to do it with a hand pump or whatever. But I really like that little electric pump I bought on Amazon. I'm sure most of my stuff comes from Amazon. It just is a lot faster, and if you have to put in 2 or 3 or 4 quarts into something, it works out really handy. And if you have a regular car with a dipstick for the transmission, you can even put that tube down the dipstick into the transmission and suck most of the fluid out, so when you take the transmission pan off, you don't have 4 or 5 quarts or whatever dumping down on you. Works out really handy. This one has a drain plug, fortunately, but a lot of transmissions don't have. So let me get that pumped in there, and I'll try to get you under there once I get it close to topped off. Well, I got 4 quarts in there, and you can't get everything out of every bottle with that, but it almost does. So what I did is I took the bottles, dumped them all into 1 bottle. So I have, I don't know, not even 1/8 of a bottle there. But I didn't even get into my 5th bottle. On the 4th bottle, it started running out of the hole. So everything I read said it's going to take 5 or 6, 5.5 quarts. I was going to just measure the oil I drained out and see how much I drained out, and I guess I can do that now because that's the oil I drained out after the overflow debacle. So let me measure that and see how much was in there, but it's got to be close to 5 quarts. Maybe it was just got air in there, or it was going in too fast, forced it out, I don't know. But I'm going to go ahead and start the vehicle and run it through the gears a couple times to get the fluid moving around. And then you're supposed to do it while it's running, I guess. You want to take the fill plug back out, and then you fill it up until it just starts coming out. So let me see, after I get it started and run through the gears, I'll get back under there and pull the fill plug out, see if there's any fluid coming out. So I've got this infrared thermometer. It works pretty good. It's made by Syntec. I'm sure I got it off of Amazon. I'm going to get under there and I'm going to check the temperature of that pan. It's possible that the oil hasn't cooled down to 100 degrees yet because I drove it a lot this morning. But it's been sitting here a few hours, so I wouldn't think it would be over 100. But let me get under there. I'll see if I can take you guys along for the ride. Now, just so you can see that it works. So it's saying right now the side of my car is 110 degrees. I can believe that, even though it's not in the sun. I checked the wall in the house, it was about 71, which is what our air conditioner's on. I checked my hand, it said 91, so it's probably pretty darn close. Let me get down here. It's a tight fit down here. That's why I jack it up like I do. See if you guys can see this. Maybe I can see it. Oh, see, right now we're at max temperature, 115 degrees. Well, the side is 112. if you can see that. But the bottom of it is showing, oh, it's cooled off a little bit. So we're right where we need to be. So, can you read that? 109 degrees. That's within the parameters. I'm just going to go ahead and tighten up the fill plug, and I think we're good. I'm going to drive it a little bit, and then we're going on vacation. We'll be back. This is the 4th of July. Today's Friday. We'll be back Monday. So either Monday or Tuesday, depending on when we get back, I'll check this again, see how it's doing. But I think we're all right. That's already up the temperature. I don't know if that would have drained out of the gears and stuff. I don't know that much about transmissions. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and start it up, pull this plug out, and see if fluid is still coming out, because if it's not, then it could be a quart low. Okay, I'm done. Now I got the oil that came out of the pan after I got the oil drain, or the fill plug out. And when I do this, I always dump it into an old container, and I use my transmission filter because it's longer, it holds more. And then if you can put something down in beside where the filter goes, or the funnel goes, that way it lets air breathe in there and it doesn't get vapor locked, and it pours in faster. So I got that in there. Let's see what we ended up getting. Okay, so I think that's the 4 quart mark, because these things hold 5 quarts, and it wasn't running, so that would be part of the reason for the overfill. But so I would guess it was at least 1.5 quarts overfull. That's my guess. Maybe only 1 quart, but it seemed like a lot. Evidently, when you're running it, it sucks about a quart of it up into the system. So, in recap, I got it jacked up as level as I can. Well, I drove it up on these ramps. Then you want to make sure you can take out the fill plug, and I think it's a 50 millimeter hex. I end up using, it's like a star, but no, it's like more like an Allen wrench. And I think it was a 5/16 Allen wrench, got it loose. I did have to tap on it with the hammer to break it free because it was tight. Once I knew that was free, I drained the oil, let it drain for quite a while because I went to lunch, and came back, put the fill plug or drain plug in, put in 4 quarts of oil, started it, let it run, ran it through the gears. Now this one has the paddle shifters. You can only go first and second. You can't go through all the gears. So I just put it into reverse, neutral, drive, clicked on the paddle shifters, shifted into first to second. Then I went back to manual, then neutral, reverse, park. Got down in here and I pumped in. Originally it was 4 quarts, and I pumped in another 1.5 quarts. So it holds right at 5.5 quarts when it's running in the oil pan. So hope this helps somebody out. I've worked on transmissions a few times and replacing solenoids, and if you just drive it up on, just raise up the front end, you don't have enough room under there usually. That's why I like to drive it up on the ramp, so I've got plenty of room. And in this case, you want the transmission level, not on a real steep angle where you'll have problems with your measurements. Thanks for watching, guys. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Appreciate you watching. Well, welcome to Driveway Garage. I'm laying underneath my Outback, trying to fix my exhaust. Let me show you what I have. Take off my sunglasses so I can see what you're seeing. So I put on a hitch, and I had to take the exhaust off to do that. And so I ordered a new exhaust gasket. Well, I just put it on there, and that's worthless. It's loose. It's tight where the bolts are, but in the middle, it's not tight at all. So either I need to get another gasket, or what I'm thinking about doing is taking the muffler off again, and then taking a hammer and trying to bend these prongs where the bolts go in down a little bit to flatten it, because evidently Maybe the original gasket was thicker, or thicker in the middle. I'm not sure, but I know this isn't going to fix my issue. So that's what I'm going to do. Take the bolts back out, take the muffler off. There's a clamp up there, and then there's one on the back of the muffler. They're not too hard to get off. I was getting a lot of rattling and I could hear the exhaust leak, and I knew I needed to replace this, so I'd ordered it. I just hadn't put it in. But the biggest reason I was having so much rattling is because these bolts came loose, and that's where all the rattling was coming from. So let me see if I can take those off, tap them with the hammer, bend them just a little bit, and maybe this will tighten up. So while I'm under here and I have the muffler off, I went ahead and enlarged the holes on the heat shield because they line up with this bolts for the hitch perfectly. And then I could get the bolts or the nuts back on, and now the heat shield is where it belongs and it's tight. And I tapped on these flanges, and this one I can't really reach because of this mounting bracket, but I got this one tapped on. I'm hoping I bent them just enough that the gasket will seal now. Otherwise, I don't know. It's bowed, so I don't know what I'm going to do for sure. Let's find out. Well, I got it back together, and I can feel exhaust coming out of there, so I still have a little exhaust leak. So I'm going to have to find a thicker gasket or something. I'm not sure. Maybe that's just a really cheap one. I think the one that came off of there actually had a metal ring around the center of it, so I'll probably have to spend a little bit more money than less than $3 for that cheap O'Reilly's one. Fix it right. But I got my heat shield back where I wanted it, and now that I know the bolts came loose, I probably never tightened them up because I was going to fix it right away. Who knows? But anyway, I may go ahead and put in new bolts to get a better gasket and fix this thing right. Thanks for watching.